Is it a cinematic sensation? Is it a masterpiece of animation? Or a terrible train wreck like Jamboree Jack? If a movie needs an exorcism, he'll smite the demon with criticism. If it deserves attention, he'll give it a heartfelt mention. A strawberry rating 1 to 5. Jamboree Reviews.
Howdy folks, Jamboree here, and welcome to this year's Halloween special episode of Jamboree Reviews. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about the scariest film I've personally ever seen. Do you think you're all brave enough to open the door to room 237? Writer Jack Torrance has been offered the chance to caretake the fancy Overlook Hotel. He brings his wife Wendy and son Danny along for the stay. However, this hotel was not only built on top of a Native American burial ground, it was also the location of a murder by former caretaker Delbert O'Grady, who killed his own family and shot himself after. We also learned that Danny has a power called the Shining, which helps him read minds and see powerful visions. While living in the Overlook, Jack faces a frustrating creative block while writing, and the family starts seeing ghosts around the building, including Mr. O'Grady himself and his twin daughters. The dark forces that haunt the hotel start urging Jack to kill his family. Can Danny's shining gift help protect him and his mother? The Shining is very much a film about isolation, how being secluded somewhere can affect your mental health and tap into subconscious feelings. While cutting off the world can mean less distractions, it also erases certain freedoms, comforts, and stimulations. The atmosphere of the Overlook Hotel is one of quiet emptiness and dark history. It's a spacious environment, sure, but such a vast amount of floors and hallways is also quite eerie too, especially when the hotel is a crime scene and a symbolic desecration of Native American land. Not to mention, because we are told that the Torrances will be the only ones living at the Overlook Hotel, it becomes discomfortingly haunting when we see another presence there. We're so used to hotels being heavily occupied by staff and residents, so it's kind of surreal being in one this barren. This is what the film's horror builds from, never knowing what's around the corner or what presence may be living with this family. The movie is constantly foreshadowing that something horrifying is going to happen. There's an ever-present feeling of ominous darkness. Anticipation is the nature of this film, to the point where it becomes cruel. Sometimes we're not even allowed to know what a character is seeing, as the camera holds on their terrified reaction for a while, before we ourselves will know what they are looking at. The film doesn't rely on flashy editing or cheap jump scares, but rather lets the camera linger on scenes for a very long time, with no regard to whether you want the scene to end or not. I'm going to give 5 points to the content. Jack Torrance has been criticised as a character that's already too crazy, before any supernatural interferences or the isolation gets to his mental well-being, but I have to disagree. There are a few scenes at the start of the film that display a very cool and calm Jack, almost gentlemanly.
Good morning, Jack. Hope you haven't been waiting too long.
No problem. In fact, we had time to grab a bite to eat.
Good. Glad you made it before they shut down the kitchen. Is your family having a look around?
No, my son's discovered the games room.
Oh. Has your luggage been brought in?
Right there.
Oh, fine.
When the family drive towards the Overlook, Jack seems a little wired, but not to the point where he's clearly nuts. He's passive-aggressive, yes, but not off his chain.
Boy, we must really be high up. The air feels so different. Dad,
Yes?
I'm hungry.
Well, you should have eaten your breakfast.
Jack doesn't really display red flag behavior until he starts spending time in the hotel.
Wendy, let me explain something to you. Whenever you come in here and interrupt me, you're breaking my concentration. You're distracting me, and it will then take me time to get back to where I was.
When it's revealed that Jack once hurt Danny, we buy it, because we know that there's always been that dark side hinted underneath him. This is why I think that there should be a little hint of something off about Jack when we first meet him. I don't think that Jack is facing a descent into madness like O'Grady did, but rather the supernatural forces are tapping into his isolation, writer's block, and repressed anger. They are bringing out the worst in him by fueling his subconscious bitter feelings towards his family, which were always there due to his workaholic nature. This is what makes Jack Torrance such a strong horror villain to me. He's a man bordering on the edge of sanity, with only the expectations of civilized society holding back his violence, making the Overlook Hotel the worst place to put him in, especially with his family. Wendy is a very kind and caring woman. She's loving to her husband and son, being a brilliant family woman. She's also very responsible and hard-working in the hotel, but due to Jack's history, she does have an apprehensive feeling about what her husband is capable of. So while she does want to respect Jack's need to be alone while writing, she is cautious of what this place is doing to her husband. This is what makes Wendy more than just a damsel in distress, as she has the strength to stand up to Jack, going as far as knocking him out and trapping him. Plus, she will do anything she can to protect Danny, even if that means risking her own life. Is she frightened? Of course she is, and she has every right to scream and cry. But she's still determined for her and Danny to survive, making her the real hero of the movie. Danny is your everyday, normal little boy. It's only his shining power that makes him unusual. Yes, he can read minds and see terrifying imagery, but he's still just a regular boy at the end of the day. A kid who likes to play with his toy cars, explore the hotel maze, and ride his tricycle. This is what makes his story so disturbing. His innocence is being corrupted by dark forces and his father's abuse. The Shining may give him advantages, but also brings him suffering and pain that no child should ever experience. However, he has inherited his mother's fantastic instinct skills, demonstrating clever survival methods or tactics to throw off his axe-wielding dad. Dick, the cook for the Overlook Hotel, is a really friendly and enthusiastic man who is great with kids. He's one of the only characters that can save Wendy and Danny, as he shares the same shining power as Danny, meaning that Danny can contact the cook for help. But when Jack ends up killing Dick, this signals a huge disadvantage for the mother and son, because now we know that Jack is capable of murder and there's no one else that can help them. I'm going to give 5 points to the characters. Director Stanley Kubrick was renowned for being a perfectionist, someone who would do dozens and dozens and dozens of takes to get the scene right. It's this impeccable high standard that makes the film very sharp and precise in direction. There's a slickness to the film's technical efforts, and I think it's this polish that makes the movie feel cold and harsh, because everything is laid out so formally, neatly, and almost flawlessly. The movie is also great at illustrating the scope of this hotel, using long takes that follow characters around the building. As this film goes along, you'll end up knowing every detail, nook and cranny of this hotel. I think that adds to the horror because it immerses us in the Overlook, building walls around the very audience. The sets are decorated with garishly bold colours and angular patterns. These style choices create a disorientating visual display that adds to the dreamlike nightmare. Every room is so hideous that it's off-putting, yet also mesmerizing at the same time in a strange way. You can also find symbolic meaning to the color choices, like the sickly green of room 237 warns of the rotting old woman that haunts it, and the red bathroom reflects Grady's murderous past. The Native American influences hint at the hotel's history too, as if the ghosts of the land are always present in some way. I'm going to give 5 points to the visuals. Jack Nicholson plays Jack with a subtle passive aggression at the film's start.
Any ideas yet?
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Well, something will come. It's just a matter of settling back into the habit of writing every day.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Then he lets this built-up anger evolve into something scarier.
And we're gonna make a new rule. Whenever I'm in here, you hear me typing. Whether you don't hear me typing, whether the fuck you hear me doing in here, when I'm in here, that means that I am working. That means don't come in.
The more time Jack Torrance spends in the Overlook Hotel, the more unhinged Jack Nicholson plays the character.
Little pigs, let me come in. Not by the hair on your chinny chin.
Shelley Duvall comes off as genuinely terrified throughout the movie. I'm afraid it is difficult to tell what part of Duvall's performance is acting and what isn't, because Stanley Kubrick used abusive methods to push a realistic performance out of her. Yes, Duvall comes off as believably scared in this film, but I still completely disagree with Kubrick's methods.
Stay away from me.
Why?
I just want to go back to my room.
Why?
I'm very confused.
Danny Lloyd is a very natural child actor, playing Danny with a sincere realism and cute likability.
What was the donut party?
They were a party of settlers in covered wagon times. They got snowbound one winter in the mountains. They had to resort to cannibalism in order to stay alive.
You mean they ate each other up?
They had to, in order to survive.
The late Scatman Crothers is terrific as Dick. His charming charisma gives the cook an endearing, bright personality.
Now this is where we keep all of our meat. You got 15 rib roasts, 30 10-pound bags of hamburger. We got 12 turkeys, about 40 chickens, 50 sirloin steaks, 2 dozen of pork roasts, and 20 legs of lamb. You like lamb, Doc?
No.
You don't? Well, what's your favorite food then?
French fries and ketchup.
Well, I think we can manage that too, Doc. Come along now, watch your step.
I'm going to give 5 points to the acting. The music for this film combines classical pieces with the original electronic synth of composer Wendy Carlos. This is honestly the most horrifying score I've ever heard, an intensely punishing soundtrack that tortures audiences. It uses unsettling ambient sounds and harsh strings to stretch out the tension to uncomfortable lengths. The music doesn't care if it's appropriate or fits a scene, it'll drop in whenever it likes, reminding you that you're watching a film that'll pull no punches. It's unforgiving in nature, just like Kubrick's direction. Even when a scene is just meant to be made up of mundane exposition, creepy high-pitched sounds will spike in, harshly ruining our sense of comfort. Wendy Carlos is a sadist, I bloody swear. She's having way too much fun. Oh, this music is scaring you? She doesn't care. She's gonna keep going. If you play any track from this movie score to me, even out of context, it'll make my skin shiver and my heart race. It's that disturbing to me. I'm going to give 5 points to the music. To conclude, this is still the movie that terrifies me the most, and one of the best horror movies I've ever seen. It's sickening to sit through, it's stressful, it's torture, and that's what horror should be all about. What's the scariest movie that you've seen? Let me know in the comment section below. The Shining has gained a total of 25 points, which translates to 5 strawberries out of 5. If you enjoyed such horror films as Misery and Suspiria, then I think you might like The Shining. I'd just like to point out that the 3D graphics for this video were produced by Rin. If you'd like to commission her for work, here's her website on screen. I've been Jamboriki and I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, then feel free to like, subscribe and share. Also, please consider supporting me by making a monthly pledge to my Patreon in return for awesome rewards. Thank you. So, what am I going to be reviewing in the next episode of Jamboriki Reviews? Well, this is going to be the first ever Patreon requested episode of the show. Justice League Doom. Cheerio folks, and happy Halloween.